All right, guys, here we have a 2004 Club Car Precedent. This is a crank no start. This one here, I'm thinking we have a fuel issue, probably a dirty carburetor, water in the carb, something silly like that. I'll turn the key on. We're gonna put the cart into maintenance mode. So it cranks over. It's got a nice strong rotation. We press the choke. And you can see we don't get anything. So it sounds to me like we might have, like I said, well, with a situation like this, if you're diagnosing this type of an issue, you have a crank no start, you could have multiple different situations that will cause it to not start. Now, and keep in mind, and you must understand, when the engine's cranking, this is cranking. Well, would you look at that? Well, if that isn't the strangest thing I've ever seen. Okay, so now it's cranking and starting, and probably will drive once I put it into drive. But we got to figure out why it happened in the first place. So I'm thinking there's a fuel delivery issue somewhere, probably. If not, it's a spark issue. But back to what I was saying, when you step on the pedal and the engine cranks over, okay, that is considered cranking. When the engine actually fires and it runs like it just did, like that, that is running. A lot of people will say, and I understand that a lot of people don't get it, but just to kind of clarify, when you step on the pedal and the engine cranks over, that is not considered running. I get comments all the time or phone calls from local customers that are requesting my assistance, and they say, I step on the pedal, the cart starts, but it doesn't drive. And 9 times out of 10, it means the cart is cranking and it's not moving. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't understand how that all works and everything, so I'm just trying to assist with how this works so you can kind of get a better understanding. So cranking is like in your car when you put your key in the ignition or you press the start button. When the engine cranks, meaning the starter motor is engaged and it turns the engine at a very high speed in order to get the engine to fire. When the engine is actually running, that's when the spark plugs are firing and the engine is running under its own power with no input from you. Okay, so that's the difference between starting and running, or cranking and running. So like, for example, this is cranking and running. Okay, so that's cranking and running, but it's not driving. The reason it's not driving is because I have it in neutral and I have it in maintenance mode. If it was doing that when it was in forward or reverse, then we have clutch issues, rear differential issues, or belt issues. There's really not a whole lot that can go wrong with these things when they're in gear. I mean, unless you really beat the shit out of it and destroy that rear diff, which, good luck. So that's just a quick and dirty crash course on the difference of cranking and starting, cranking, running, starting, driving, etc. I hope that was helpful. So now let's figure out what's going on with this thing. All right, so on this, what I'm going to start with is, I'm going to start with the simple stuff. I'm going to check for spark. 3 fundamental things that every internal combustion engine needs: air, fuel, and spark. Okay, I mean, now there's other things that it needs. It needs compression, it needs lubrication, and all this other stuff. So we're going to start with spark. We're going to see if we have an intermittent spark. This stupid crossbar here. Ridiculous. We're going to check the condition of our spark plug first. Because if you have a fouled spark plug, you're obviously not going to have a good time. Okay, so the spark plug, it has a little bit of carbon on it, not terrible. I mean, I've seen them a lot worse than this. So let's check and see how's our... Okay. So there's no excess fluids in there. Let's see how our spark is. You probably can't see that, but that is a really good, bright spark. So I know spark is good. There's no problem with the ignition coil. Let's check compression while we have the spark plug out. If compression is good, then we know, I mean, I don't really think there's going to be an issue with compression. And I'm pretty sure this engine has hydraulic lifters, meaning there's no adjustment. It's all done dynamically with the engine oil. And see, folks, that's the other thing you need to keep in mind. With these modern engines, especially these newer carts, a lot of them have hydraulic lifters in them. And if you don't change your oil frequently and your filter, you're going to have issues internally, just like with your main vehicle, like your car or your truck. Okay, so we know compression's good. We're at about like 145 PSI, so we're good there. We know compression's not an issue. But because of these engines having hydraulic lifters, if you don't keep your oil clean, you know, oil and a filter are dirt cheap compared to engine repairs. I mean, if you're really just asking for trouble if you don't maintain these things. And you buy a golf cart to have fun with and you enjoy it, but if you don't maintain it, you're going to have a bad time with it. It's not going to be fun. And then you're going to be forking out a lot of money to fix or replace whatever is broken. So just to kind of recap on the situation here, the customer said he was driving around for about an hour or so, and the cart ran good. It was fine. And then all of a sudden, it just shut off on him. Because it fired right up this time around, I don't think there's a fuel problem. Because typically when there's a fuel issue, it's normally like a sput and spitter kind of thing. Like the engine will spit and sputter a little bit. And then once the fuel starts to flow really smoothly, it'll run better and better until it finally runs smooth like it's supposed to. But the way he's explaining the situation, it seems like, this is just an educated guess, but it seems like we might have an ignition issue. Because this thing is also hitting the rev limiter. So let me... Okay, and because it's hitting the rev limiter, I think our governor is either bad or way out of adjustment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually shut the cart off. I'm going to look down in here. And I want to see if I see these Precedents have no room to work. What I'm looking for is how the cables are moving. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is turn it on. Okay, so what I'm looking for is basically to see if the governor is actually moving, and I can't really see if the governor is moving. Now, I've had no luck with fixing these things when the governor fails, so don't ask. Without taking the rear end apart completely and getting the parts directly from Club Car, which good luck with that, can prove to be very difficult. All right, so we're on the back of the cart now, and I've taken off the access panel. So here is the governor. This shaft that comes out of the rear diff is the governor itself. It's controlled by counterweights and gears that are inside the diff that are going to allow it to rotate left and right based on RPM from the input shaft that is driven by the drive clutch and drive belt. The clutch that's on the rear is called the driven clutch, or the secondary. The clutch on the engine is the drive clutch or the primary. Okay, so what we need to look for is to see how this thing is going to move back and forth, because this cable here comes from the accelerator pedal and control box, and then it runs down the side of the length of the cart to back here, which then when you step on the pedal, it pulls this, and then this lever moves and pulls that cable, which is connected directly to the throttle body. When you step on the pedal and the engine starts and cranks and runs, this pulls open the throttle, And then as the RPMs of the input shaft increase, it backs this down and slows the RPMs of the engine. And it does it so fluidly you don't even really know it's there. So what we need to do is we need to see if this is functioning like it's supposed to. Because if it's not, then we got to let the customer know what's going on with that. And like I said, I have not had successful repairs of this. So let's see what's going on here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to step on it full throttle. And I'm going to look back from the front and see what it does after I turn the cart on. Okay, so it hit the rev limiter. I let off the pedal and shut the cart off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to crack loose that nut. And we're going to see if the governor is actually working. So we're going to break this nut loose. Hopefully. There we go. Like somebody's been back here. Okay, so now that shaft will start to independently rotate from that. I'm going to take a small screwdriver. See how that shaft rotates independently of that arm? So I got it bumped up against the bump stop here, so it won't go this way to the right any further. So when the governor engages, it should rotate this way, meaning it's lessening the throttle. So let's see if it does that. Okay, so that's good news. It did rotate towards the left. So we're going to max that out right there. And we're going to tighten it. We're going to tighten it down so this clamp pulls on that shaft. Now, we're going to start the cart again. Okay, so now that was full throttle, pedal to the floor. So our governor is working the way it's supposed to. So what I'll do is I'm just gonna crack this loose. And I'm gonna give it just a little turn. And I'm gonna tighten it. And we're gonna try it again because we don't want it bouncing off the rev limiter because that just creates more issues. Okay, so the good news is the governor is working like it's supposed to. You can hear by the way the engine revved up and then revved down. So now we just got to go a little further. Okay. I've had club cars where the governor has exploded inside. Little movements. You do little movements. You don't have to do a lot of movements at once. You do too many, you do too large of a movement, you're never going to find that sweet spot. So we found the spot where it's supposed to be. Now we're not going to touch it. I'm going to tighten it down. And that's where it's going to stay. So what I got to do is I basically got to run this thing now to see if it shuts off again. I'll have to run it for about an hour and see what happens. I don't know how, I don't know if we'll be able to replicate the customer's issue, but we will definitely try. And then the club car has these crappy little plastic clips that you put in that have a Phillips head screw head on, which that's only good enough to get these out. So we'll just put them in and slide them in and that's back in there. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm just going to run the cart with a weight on the gas pedal outside for a little bit and see what happens to see if we can get the situation that he was having replicate as far as the engine shutting down and not running and starting back up again. Because it started right up for me after it sat. So that's just a really quick way to adjust your governor. But guys, don't be screwing around with the governors. They're there for a reason. If you want your cart to go faster, then you need to invest some money. I know I've mentioned this in other videos, but every time you screw around with that governor, you're risking engine damage, you're risking rear end damage, not to mention your safety. I mean, these things, they're only 4 feet wide, not even. They're 44 inches wide. They're 8 feet long. They're the size of a sheet of plywood, and they're kind of top heavy. So you put your ass in the seat and you start doing fast speeds with these that they're not meant to be doing, you're just risking a lot of things that, are they really worth it to you? But hey, I just work on them. It's your golf cart. You could do whatever you want. But don't screw around with the governor if you don't want to have these kinds of issues and have a guy like me come in and fix it. But you see what a pain in the ass that is. That's just a quick and dirty. So what we're going to do is just let it run, and we can see if we get it to shut down again. If not, if it doesn't shut down after an hour, then we're going to call this one good. Alrighty guys, this is how I do my pedal. Real simple, just a heavy bar. So I just got done running this thing for about 45 minutes at full throttle, and it did not shut off once. It didn't hit the rev limiter once. I did notice that the throttle is a little bit out of adjustment in the control box. So the customer having that issue with the engine shutting down, I don't know what that was all about. One thing I did notice when I brought it outside to run it, he didn't have the fuel lever was kind of like halfway. I mean, it doesn't really matter so much, but I bumped it over all the way to where it should be. It is possible that it was starving for fuel and it just happened to be the way it was when he parked it, I guess, I don't know, or while he was driving it and it shut down on him. As far as I can tell, I mean, it seems to be okay. Really not a whole lot more that I can do. I mean, other than just, I mean, I drove it, adjusted the governor, and the oil's good. It looks like he's already changed the oil and fuel filter, so there's no issues there. It did not show any signs of fuel hiccuping. And what I mean is it didn't spit and sputter at all while I had it running that whole time. Yeah, I think this one's good. So it's one of those things where I'm just going to have to let the customer know that we did what we did and we didn't really have to do anything further. And it basically is going to be a situation where they are going to be the ones that have to drive it around for a while and see if it happens again. Because I wasn't able to find any issues with it. But other than that, I mean, it seems like it's a good cart. I don't see any major issues with it. It rides really nice. It's just that one little hiccupy issue. So, all right, guys, this one's done for now. I guess we'll come back to it if we need to. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Be sure to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Check the video's description to links for products that I use every single day to bring you these videos and run my business. Check out all my social media pages and website. And until next time, we will see you in the next video.